Welcome. I'm Mark Bromwich, and I teach for business and IT, primarily in the IT department, where I do web programming and user design, web design. And today I'm going to talk about a number of applications that one can use, starting from tutorials and learning about programming all the way up into more advanced programming applications, all on the iPad. It's something I've been interested in. Usually we spend our time with programming using computers in these elaborate IDEs, and integrated development environments is what that stands for. In order to see if the iPad, A, is powerful enough, and B, has the breadth in which programmers need to program, I've been trying out a number of apps to see if it works. And so I have a list of the apps that I'm looking at today, so if anybody wants to take a look at them, and I'll just hand one to you. Actually, I'll give them all to you. So these are the apps that I'm looking at today, or showing, and I'm going to start with the learning apps, or what I like to call the tutorial type apps. And one of the best places I like to send my students to is Udemy. And hopefully I'm pronouncing these properly, and if I'm not, then my apologies. But Udemy is a fantastic online library of pay-for and free tutorials for a number of college subjects, program areas, not just programming. It's amazing stuff. Oops, sorry, I went to sleep there. I have one specifically that I have my students download. It's Learn MySQL, which we use quite a bit for web design, web programming. This is how we get our dynamic content into our websites. So I'll fire up the Udemy so you can see what that looks like. And these are the three that I have my students take a look at for PHP programming. So we'll start with just the basics. And these were free, which is nice. Again, they have some very elaborate pay-for courses that you can download, and some were up to $150, $200, which are really pricey for students. But if you're a guy or gal trying to update your language skills, this may be a great place to go instead of taking a course, because it is basically laid out like my course, and that's why I like to send my students here as a reference or additional information for our course. So this one happens to be primarily video based, and I don't want to talk while they're talking. But there's a number of lectures in this series, and they're going to walk us through what it is that they do here for this particular topic, which is PHP. So again, I'm going to give this a stop because we've seen it. And so basically it's my class online in little short snippets, little short videos, vignettes. And that just happens to be this one. Again, there's a number one, and we'll take a look at. This one is one I send my students to, which again looks very much the same. Same setup. This one's all videos, so my students can go in, watch these videos before they come to class, but after they read the chapters to re-emphasize. So a great place. If you go to Udemy itself, here you can see, again, they have social media marketing, super learner, body language, you name it, they do it. And again, tons of free stuff, and again, you can see there's tons of stuff that can be pretty pricey. So just depending on what you're interested in and what you're willing to do in regards to pay or free to get that. And you can search by free, you can search by language. So if we want our students to learn Java, search. And again, you can see there's a bunch of free stuff comes up right away, and then there's some smaller tutorials for $15. So a bunch of fantastic applications available. And then you download those, and they go into your library, and then you can scroll through. Again, great app for students to learn further about what it is that you want them to learn. Any topic, it's fantastic. I have this specific one for Learn MySQL, which if I fire it up, you'll just see it's the same window, except it's specifically geared towards this particular subject area. So again, it's just Udemy, but different shell. So I'll close that out. So again, these two are the same thing. This one allows you to get to the entire library. This one's specific to SQL learning. Again, great for my students because as I teach PHP, one of the prerequisites for that language is the database class, Intro to Databases. And so they'll get to me, and sometimes, you know, over a summer, they may forget some things along the way. So I'll tell them, listen, go here, affiliate yourself with the MySQL, and then when they come to class, they're, you know, it's back in where they need it so that I don't spend time reteaching MySQL. So again, a great place if you're teaching Comp 2. You could go on, find a course on Comp 1 refresher, it's free, go have them learn it, it's fantastic. So that's one of the great apps that I have. Another one for programming that's fantastic is Cheat Docs. Cheat Docs. It's not really cheating. If you look here, they have a number of, for programmers, web development, specific programming languages, any IDEs, so any of the software that programmers use. Only 3 of those though, that's kind of sad. I wish I had more because there's some pretty complicated IDEs out there. Some templating and various. So if we're looking at web development and I'm teaching HTML and CSS, up pops their cheat sheet. So I can tell them we're going to build a division nested in a division. And they get like, how do I do that again? Scroll, 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 right? And then find divisions in the sheet, shows them their attributes, shows them how they use them, shows them what's deprecated, or just a number of great, helpful cheat sheets. Not really cheating, I let them use them. So again, if we're in CSS, all kinds of CSS3, brand new properties that may not be in a textbook yet, but because we have the cheat sheet, we can go ahead and try them. Sadly, a lot of these behaviors aren't supported by browsers yet, so they're fun to play with if you have the browsers installed. I lost my AirPlay, so let me turn that back on. Seems to be doing its thing.
Perfect.
Is it back on? Fantastic. I don't know what I did, but it worked. So again, fantastic freebies. And what's really cool is if a student doesn't have an iPad, but his pal does, no worries. You can add to favorites, you can print it, you can email it, right? So if you've got it, your pal doesn't, you say, here, I'll just email it to you, and then you can open it up on your computer. And so we can print it and then leave reviews so we can update the sheets and stuff. Yeah, great. The only downside to this app, the cheat sheet app, is you got to put up with the ads. But again, for these sheets, and again, I use them, my students love them, it's worth it. It's worth every penny. So that's the next one we're going to go to is Hopscotch, which is for young kids or someone who's never ever programmed before. It's okay for them as well. This is one that we encourage our Intro to Programming high school instructors to use if they have students who want to take their Intro to Programming class, our Intro to Programming class, but have no idea. They can start to mess around with this. It is geared towards little people. I would say 7 to 12 is really what it's geared toward. But it's just fantastic for teaching logic. So let's say we're going to create a new project, and you have to pick a character, Cupcake, of course. And then you can see you have to create a path for this character. And so if we wanted to move, it's move, fantastic, by how much? 300. In this particular app, it's pixels. So he's going to move 300 pixels. Then I'll rotate him 30 degrees, and I'll move him again. And we'll see if we can get him to go in some sort of octagon or something here. So we'll move him again, then we'll rotate him again. Right? So we can add all these behaviors. I mean, it's awesome because it teaches exactly what we want them with this object, our cupcake, right? So it's fantastic in teaching how we talk in programming. And then once we have it set up, and of course any of these are editable, if you will. I don't know if that's a word, but it's mine now. And then we can hit play, and the little cupcake will do what we told him to do. Right? And then we can learn from that, saying, uh-oh, right, my cupcake went awry here, so you know, how do I fix that, and how do I solve some of these problems? And then you can see as we move down, we can have it draw, we can do controls, right? So all the programming activity that we like to see that students should have foundationally are all here for them to play with. So it's kind of fun. So you can grow and shrink him and do all kinds of fun things. This is hopscotch. Yeah, it's just hilarious and it's fun. And again, it's a great introduction to programming for someone who has no idea what it looks like. There are some options. You can upload documents. You can share your productions. Again, so for young kids or kids that are, 8th grade, getting ready for high school and want to take that programming class that we offer in the high schools, but not sure, great for them, fun. I don't really play with this in my classes, but I do let them know it's there. Again, so if they want to start to see some of the concepts that is programming, or if I have a student that's really struggling, I might point them here, but again, it's kind of rudimentary for some folks. So that's hopscotch. Another fun one to learn with is game press, which again allows the students to create games, but they create games, it's all drag and drop, and then they plug in their behaviors for their activities of the characters in their games, but they're also seeing the programming behind it. So it's fantastic, and we'll create a quick game here. We'll call it fun. And create. Right, so then you pick out what kind of game you want. You want a top-down where you're shooting stuff, or a side scroller. We'll go with the side scroller. You can't go wrong. And then down at the bottom are pre-formatted characters, which you can add to or take away from. So you've got a good guy and you've got some bad guys and some obstacles and some things to go get. And again, like I said, this is pretty much a drag and drop environment. And then once you drag that object onto the screen, you go through its properties. And so what do you want that object to do? And how does it interact with other objects on the screen? So again, very neat programming, because they start to see, let's say we want it to be joystick controlled, let's say. All right, then it talks to you all about, well, okay, if you're going to do that, here's some of the behaviors, right? And for kids, again, or somebody just interested in programming, or somebody interested in making apps, mobile apps, this is pretty fun. It can be advanced for some people. Again, it's not an intro, that's for sure. We would probably send them to hopscotch first. But again, you can see what happens. So you can set all these controls. What happens if he gets hit by a bullet, or if you whatever. Tons of stuff to interact with that thing. And again, you can. So it's just drag and drop, and then you add the behaviors. Whoop, do your thing. There you go. To that, and again, so you can have it transform. You can have collision. So what happens when a character hits it? You can duplicate it. You name it. Or if you just don't think it belongs, you can delete it. Start all over. So again, a pretty fascinating little app. And again, for people interested in building online games or online mobile app games, I'm going to show you one game that was built with this software quickly here. That would be funny. Loading. Yeah, I must. Nope, I've got it set to ringer. That's pretty awesome. Oh well, you get a look at it. So, and by the way, this game that was created is made for programming as well. Check this out. So you just have to tilt your head, but you get the gist. So you set up the program, and then you play the program and see if you accomplish the mission here, which is to get the box to move from here to here. Yay, right? I did it. So again, a fantastic game that goes along with it. And by the way, The game is not on the sheet, my apologies, but its name is, there we go, Cargo Bot. Cargo Bot, really, really fun little game because again, it'll teach programming, and it was made by one of these applications. Then finally, we have the Code Academy. Again, a more advanced app. There it goes, now it's working for us. And uses a pseudocode-like language that helps teach, again, programming, and it'll walk you through a lot of programming. Then you can run the program. So this is what's going to happen. It uses a variable, my name, which equals Mark, and then print hello plus my name. Hello, Mark. Let's move on. Next exercise. So again, now we're going to do a comparison where if my name is exactly equal to Mark, then print welcome. If you're not, so again, if you want to run this, and it just walks people through all these basic programs, snippets, so on and so forth. So you can see what it does. It's pretty slick, pretty fun. I'm going to quit. And then it has a number of getting started, data types, variables, compare and if else. And there's other things you can add to this. They have this whole, and I did have it on the sheet, yeah. They have this whole hour of code thing where they have all these blocks of code that they teach in an hour's time. So you can carve out an hour of your day, sit down, and go through one of the lessons, whether it's getting started, data types, variables, whatever. They're all an hour long. And again, it's pretty slick. And you can add to those and take away from those. When you get back to the starting screen, they do have some pay-for modules. Otherwise, it's free. So the basic stuff's free. The more advanced type stuff is for pay, for money. But again, a pretty neat. No, I don't want to do that. So we'll turn that off. So check it out. Again, it's Code Academy. So that's all the learning apps I have. Now some of the live apps that I use in my courses to help my students. Again, I primarily teach web programming, so I primarily focus on text editors and IDEs for HTML and CSS, and then I also use IDEs for ASP and PHP programming. So I try to find more IDE-like apps. And there's two really great ones that I use for PHP specifically. It's the Kodiak for PHP, and if you're interested in programming, they actually have for a number of different languages. This is just one that I actually use. So they have a number of examples built in. Now these are ones that we're actually using in class. Right now we're building a used car lot, and these are some of the scripts that will process some of the information for that. There it goes, a little slow. So what's cool about this app is you can program, and then it uses an online, so you do need an internet connection to play with this app, but it uses an online server to test your code. So it's not heavy on your iPad. It doesn't download the entire PHP and try and run some sort of Apache environment. It actually runs on this server, so it sends the script and it comes back and it'll reply for you. So if we hit play, now this should fail miserably because I don't, yeah, because I don't have the connection script in and running, but you can see what happens. It's pretty cool. So it sends the script to the server, connects to the database, tests the server or your script, and it will send back a result. The only thing it can't do is advanced DB apps, like if you're trying to query a database and pull stuff, because they obviously are not housing the database for you. They're just testing your script. So it's really made for doing operational comparisons and things that are all more server-side scripting without the requirement of a my SQL database. So pretty cool. I do have an app that will use a database, which is pretty cool. But again, this one's pretty, the nice thing about this one is light. So you can test some simple scripts and do some things. Now, yeah, see, this one's looking for a local host, which, right, failed miserably. But nonetheless, some of the examples that they have, so if you want to just look at PHP output, this is, again, what would have a student programming class. Yay! Right, so that, again, gets sent to the server, it's tested and comes back. Obviously we have a broken image, so we'll have to fix that. But again, a really nice light application for the iPad to run some PHP. And again, that one's the Kodiak IDE. Next one over is the programming language, PHP. And again, tons of language, this guy, or this group. I shouldn't say it's all this guy. And again, it's basically an IDE where you can go ahead and type right in there. And what I like about this one too is they have a, they bring up a special touch pad for all the characters you're going to need for PHP. Right, so if we just want to do like a simple echo, instead of having to shift and do all that, it's all right there on this little touchpad, yeah. So there's no all that shifting and then double shifting through, and then you can run it, running your program. Dun, 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 dun. But you'll notice this one is a little heavier, and just to run a simple hello world, it took a long time because part of the engine is installed with the app, and so it's slow. It's really, really slow. But otherwise, it works really, really well. We go back to the source code. And again, you can see you can do some pretty interesting functions. You can build. It'll help you parse some of what you're building as you program. You can use a reference. So if you're not quite sure, you can walk through and it has string function, math function, so a library of how to do for you. So again, pretty helpful. And if you're not sure, you got even a tweet and web page to go visit. So it's a really fun, helpful app. And again, most of these apps free, which I really, really love. Now, I don't know if I have any. Yeah, there's a couple of testers I have on here. Let's see. So here's one that's going to run a simple for each loop. Run it. Chug-a-chug. So if you're patient, this is a great app. Because again, it's housed here, which is nice. It's housed here. You don't require an online connection to make this work. So I do like that for this particular app. And again, that's the PHP. And they just called it PHP, so I put on your list, if you're following the list, if you, in the App Store, look for Dmitry Kovba, you'll find it. Oh, did you already find it? Yeah, it's pretty cool. Because when you type PHP into the App Store, oh my God, right, there are tons and tons of apps and cheat sheets and all kinds of PHP stuff out there. I have found these two to really be the best two, and I've tried them all. I even bought a couple of them, and I found these to be really the two best ones out there for PHP programming. And I really encourage my students who do have iPads to try them out. Next one down is BASIC. So again, if you want to, or if you remember BASIC programming, pretty old school, but what a fantastic little app to remind yourself about programming, especially programming in BASIC. So you can go to the code, and again, I've loaded up a simple app here. You can save a number of them in here, and they have this library of scripts online. So if you want to go back to, old school memory lane trip and remember that Apple IIe you were sitting in front of, this is it. This is all that it uses. It does understand most of AppleSoft, so it's pretty fun. So again, we'll see if we can run this thing. Area of a triangle. Then let's see, terminal. Oops. What's it asking? I think it's asking for. I'm not sure which one it's right. I don't think it's running the right one. It's not. Darn it. So I messed it up. My apologies. But nonetheless, once you get in and play around with it, it's pretty fun. Here we go. Okay, so I hit the wrong button. So here's the height, and we'll make the height of a triangle 12, and we'll make the base of the triangle, 16, and then it does the area calculation for you. So yay, right? You get to see these instant little programming. And then again, a great help section. So they have all the, if you don't remember, a lot of the old school basic commands to get this thing to work. And it works very much like an old school Apple IIe or TRS-80. Remember the directory, copy, delete, all that stuff. So it works like an old school machine. Primarily because an iPad's like 1,000 times more powerful than your first machine, right? So it's pretty cool. And again, that's the basic terminal. It too is free. And by the way, nothing so far in the actual IDEs that I've shown so far are cost anything. They're free. Moving around, next one is JASIC, or JASIC, however they pronounce it. And this is for JavaScript. So if you are a JavaScript programmer, this one's built specifically for you with a little web window that they emulate to see the results of your programming. Now, I'll be honest, I haven't messed around with it too much because I don't teach JavaScript, or we don't teach JavaScript anymore. To our students, we have a small inclusion for JavaScript in some of our courses, but we don't have a JavaScript class anymore per se. So I don't mess with this too much, but I found it and I thought, well, might as well just throw it on there and let people see it. It's kind of interesting. If you're interested in JavaScripting, there is something out there for you. But the way the JavaScript has gone, you know, especially with the way jQuery has really taken over and keeping the libraries online, all that scripting is done already, if you will. So the inclusion of that, we don't spend a lot of time teaching JavaScript anymore, straight scripting. Let's see. Another neat language that I've come across is called Luna. And it's a very pseudocode-like language. And again, if you know the Luna language, a great IDE to program that. But if you don't know the Luna language, what's really neat about this app is it looks so much like pseudocode that it's really helped students understand and learn basic programming principles. It's a pretty straightforward language. Some interesting setup, but again, once you get used to the syntax, it's really cool. And so again, it runs, or when we teach fundamentals of programming and logic, this is something we like to use. We actually use Python for the most part, and this looks a ton like Python. So again, it's so pseudocode-like that students can actually see how it works. They can program it, understand it pretty quickly. They can run it here. So please enter a text line. Right, and so it did a number comparison. You can see it's not very clever. Didn't do any validating, but it has a little window for them to try stuff out so they can restart the program. Again, that was supposed to compare two numbers, but I put in two text lines. So not a clever language, but a simple enough language that a student, again, who's interested in learning programming could use this to learn about it. A couple of loop examples that they can try out, and again, if we run it, please enter a text line. Hello. Uh-oh, because what was it looking for? A number. So that one does work. But again, pretty cool, pretty fun. And there's a number of other things you can download to populate this, or you can program your own. And they have great documentation and great info on this app, again, to learn this language. And we encourage students to learn a language, you know, because once you understand the logic of any language, syntax is a matter of just learning new rules. A variable here and a variable there, although the setup or syntax is different, they're the same thing. So again, once you understand the principle of a variable, you know, that it's storing a value, they can move from language to language. And we love that, and it's really easy. It's awesome. So again, that's this program's called Luna. Let's see, make sure I don't miss anything. Then, if you're just into plain old scripting with a text editor, This one is your tag. It's called for HTML because we call all our commands tag. Tag is your answer. And it has, what's fantastic too is it has a little preview area for you as well. That's just the README. So I'll create a new file. Your HTML goes here. And again, these guys, gals have included an awesome common character row for us, right? So we can do the whole, and I'm obviously skipping some things here because like you should declare doc type and whatnot, / right, and then preview. Yay! So again, a real basic text editor for your HTML. The one downside to most of these text editors, and boy, there's a gazillion of these things in the App Store as well, is most of them are not HTML5 compliant in regards to the previews. So if you're trying some of the, like the Canvas and some of the WebKit stuff, you know, you're not going to see that activity at all. Some of them do allow for the embedding of CSS, some do not. So again, depending on how advanced you want to mess with your HTML on your iPad, there are a number of options available. This one, not so clever, but again, on the free side of the world. And so free apps tend not to be as advanced, but a great, just basic HTML editor to mess around. It understands tables just fine. It seems to do pretty well with divisions. So and you can use header, nav, section, article. Those are all available. So it works pretty good, but again, it's not uber complicated because they are free. I'm sorry, I thought that was a question waiting to happen. The last one, which is a really, really complicated, but boy, fantastic programming application IDE is this Codea. And you really need to know some languages to mess with this dog. It's huge, but you can see it's a very, very powerful application for animations, for image manipulation, parameters, you name it. And again, this was designed with game making in mind. And so students who are interested, who are doing fairly well in some of our application development courses, who really want to get into mobile app development, mobile gaming, a lot of students are interested in this activity. We'll point them here to this Codea, which is, again, just a fantastic piece of software, as you can see as I scroll through what it can do. Again, they have to be pretty savvy to use this app. And here's what its programming window looks like. And so you can build classes in here. You can mess with objects. I mean, you name it, you can do it. And they have all these like modules that you can plug into your characters as you're building these games. So this is a gravity module, and it's going to allow obviously characters to have gravity, and it classes them out, which is cool. So you can plug and play these behaviors, but you again clearly have to understand some programming to get in here and get your characters to do what you want them to do. If you want to add music, you want to build, again, there's just tons and tons of great code. And then there are people that can add to these libraries and you name it. They also have a site for games that are developed by this